Okay, we're reconvening the regular meeting. No closed session report, just info received. Tonight we have our patriotic exercise. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Shane Pico from Lincoln Elementary.
Hi, my name is Shane and I am a migrant student at Lincoln Elementary School. I teach at this school. I just finished the football game. My hobbies are playing baseball and playing ball. I also like to sing. Can you please rise and put your rifles at your side? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic.
Let's come up here and get the picture taken. I'll take the first one. So look here.
Yeah, you get to take the first one and then we
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, go ahead.
Appreciate it.
All right, now we'll do roll call. And Boyd, Doug Brown,
Present.
Elizabeth Kendall, present, Mark, Helen, Florence Wong here. Item 8, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Somebody want to take something off the consent agenda, do we talk about that now or just do those things?
Either one.
Yeah.
You want to just, so you can either ask that it be removed and added to the end for approval, or you can just, after the seconding of the motion, you can open that item for discussion, whichever way you want to do it.
Oh, it's just to make.
Oh, so then just during the item, just make something with a correction.
Okay, so we'll get to the consent. agenda.
Yep.
Yeah, and then, yeah, if someone wants to pull something off the consent, just mention it when we get to item 16. Okay, aside from that, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Lisa, is there a second? Elizabeth, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9, approval of minutes from September 29, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Doug, is there a second?
I second.
Dan, all those in favor?
Aye.
Item 10, public statements related to agenda items. Public statements. At the discretion of the Board of Trustees, the public may address the board on non-agenda items and or agenda items. In person, if you choose to make a public statement and you are present at the meeting, please complete the blue request to address the Board of Trustees form and provide it to the superintendent's assistant, and you will be called upon during the agenda item. Virtual. If you are virtual and wish to make a public statement, you may email your statement to info@burlingameschools.org. You must submit your statement no later than 12 p.m. noon on the board meeting day. Your statement will be included. You will not be called upon to read the statement. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending upon the topic and number of persons wishing to be heard. If your comment is on an item that is not on the agenda, then you will be asked to speak during the public statements related to non-agenda topics at the end of the meeting. If your comment is on an item that is on the agenda, then you will be called on to speak at the time of the agenda item. All right, item 11, union statement. Is there someone here to give a union statement?
Yeah, 2 of us.
Okay.
You can both come up if you'd like, just use the microphone. But if you could speak into the microphone, because that's actually what makes you heard on the online version, right? Because we're recording.
So very close.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Or you could take it off.
You
Hold
can
if
pick
you
it up.
want, like a- Yeah.
Okay. First time speaking, so I'm not sure. So I'm Marisol Vasali. I'm one of the physical education teachers at the middle school, and it's my 10th year there. I am also a site rep for the second time this year, and I've chosen to speak on behalf of the middle school tonight. So first of all, we just finished our Trojan Superhero Tournament on Friday, led by the PTA, which was a successful event, led by PTA President Ingrid Gauthier. We had a great time. It was in conjunction with the PE department, so it was led during PE classes. And so it was a lot of fun. I'm sure you'll see pictures soon. Second of all, the teachers at BIS and all the schools are enjoying our retention bonus that we got just last week for staying from last year onto this year. So we want to recognize that and thank the district for that. Third, we had a great PD yesterday for my specific department. There's only 8 of us in the district that do physical education, and we've had our 3rd straight day of straight physical education specific instruction. So we really appreciate that and hope that our department continues to grow and learn and better ourselves for our students. The next item I wanted to report was I have noticed in our VCE annual report here that I'm not sure if it's typos or not, but there's 19 teachers reported to have to be funded by VCE. And I wanted to point out the district has made it clear that the more teachers, that every time a teacher is funded by VCE, we get temporary status. So this number is increasing, and I'm not speaking only on behalf of my department, but this year I think it's the first time, I'm not sure if my facts are correct, but 2 world language teachers were funded by VCE. It says 7 music teachers are funded by VCE. So we love VCE and we definitely appreciate all the funding they're doing, including the great fundraiser we just had. But from a teacher perspective, more and more of us are getting temp status, not only at the elementary level, but at the middle school level due to our funding coming from VCE instead of our district. So I wanted to point that out, just kind of shed light on it. I'm not sure solutions. I'm not sure how all the finances work, but I wanted you to know that as teachers are, we want to retain teachers who want to stay, and teachers who get temp status often think, well, I can go elsewhere for permanent status. So that is something to report. We just completed 6th grade outdoor ed, which was a success. I wasn't there, but I've heard a lot of funny stories, like parties that they can only get in by paying a pat of butter that they stole from the dining hall and things like that. So, and creamers, they would steal a creamer and they'd get into someone's cabin with a creamer. So apparently they had a really good time. I'll be going along with the other teachers for the second half, the 250 other students that couldn't go for the first trip at the end of September are going at the end of October. Our new leadership at BIS is very spirited. We're very happy with our new leadership. And also we are excited about all the continued construction of new student rec center. And we are really looking forward to that. And now with our music teacher.
Thanks, Marisol.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Renee Canto Adams. I teach music at Washington and Franklin here in Burlingame. So I wanted to follow up Marisol's insights with some information about Prop 28, which is this is the hardest part, saying the name right. The Arts and Music in Schools Funding Guarantee and Accountability Act. And I've got a little bit of information, if it's all right, that I could pass out to you.
Sure.
So Prop 28 dedicates more than 900 million in additional funding to arts and music education in public schools, and it does it all without raising taxes. And this is because it's possible because it pulls about 1% of the state general funds, which currently has a surplus of $100 billion. And if it gets passed, the measure would be the largest investment in arts and music education in the country. And one of the most important parts of the proposition is that it requires at least 80% of the funding to be used on hiring personnel, with the remainder able to be used on supplies, materials, training, and anything, community partnerships with arts and education organizations. The remaining 20% has a wider margin of how it can be used. Now, in the context of Burlingame, the measure would add, in my rough estimation of $300,000 to our visual and performing arts budget. And as Marisol was discussing, as we're discussing the importance of making PE and music tenure track positions, the potential funding that would come in from Prop 28 would provide the district with a significant amount of financial flexibility in order to explore making those goals a reality, assuming it gets passed. Now, Burlingame has provided a renowned visual and performing arts education for students for decades, as many of us hopefully know. And therefore, our community has seen firsthand the positive effects that the arts can have on all of our students when it comes to engagement and achievement. Now, I think with the potential that comes from Prop 28, it presents a prime opportunity for the district to double down on that claim that we've had and hopefully continue to make of providing exceptional music education for all of our students. Some of you hopefully know about the incredibly high signups that we've had for our 4th and 5th grade instrumental programs this year. Over the past several years, each of our elementary sites has experienced a decline in our instrumental pullout lessons, whereas this year, every single site has experienced record numbers of signups, with the largest one seeing, I believe, a doubling in their program from 54 students last year to 105 this year, which is incredible. Now, because of this, and I say this with a caveat, our signups have far exceeded the amount of space that our music teachers have allotted in their schedules in order to accommodate instrumental music. And that's a delightfully good problem to have. It is so much better than the alternative of continuing to experience our numbers declining as they did during the pandemic. And the music team has been working to come up with creative ways to accommodate the overflow so no students get turned away this year. But I think it's important to highlight the fact that these are stopgap measures, and the growth of this program is indicative of our program expanding and developing, and indicates a very clear need for additional personnel in order to accommodate that expansion. Now, if Proposition 28 were to get passed, it presents a very clear possibility and logistical route in order to accommodate and present that additional personnel, instead of having to keep our music program stagnant or potentially have to have it turned down, proceed, or otherwise turn students away, which is something we don't want to do. It contradicts the missions that we've conveyed to us. I'd like to thank Superintendent Malpanitas for sharing the frequently asked questions sheet on Prop 28 in the fact sheet in the district newsletter last week. I've already heard from several families expressing their appreciation and having received information about such an incredible opportunity to expand and improve their children's creative opportunities. So thank you very much. And I think that's about it. All I have to share. For Prop 28, I think it's important that residents be aware of the significance of the proposition and how it has the potential to truly change the landscape of visual and performing arts education in California in a way that we've never seen before. And for our district leadership, I think it's vital to be aware of how the financial support from that funding can allow us to continue to live up to the claim that we are providing high quality and comprehensive music education for each and every one of our students. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, item 12, statement of principles.
I'm Laura Abshar. I'm principal at Lincoln Elementary, and it's been fantastic this year to really focus on learning. We are having such a good time, and these are the things that get me really excited about my work. And so lately, some of our recent learning has been, we had training with Jeff Swears from Stanford and authentic communications, and really digging into building meaning, having exchanges and conversations, and really helping children build on ideas and expand ideas. Our principal team went to Stanford for a youth conference. And really working on mathematical mindsets and really digging into activities that have, it's always low floor, high ceiling is the term. So it's easy to access for everybody, but then the kids can take the activities and the work and run with it. So it's really exciting to look through and look into. We just had a training with the California Reading and Literature Project from Berkeley, which this is my favorite, about the neuroscience and reading that has come out lately. It's changed in the last 5 years, but it's really fascinating how we're building neural pathways in reading, and it goes from visual through thought to to concept and then backwards for writing and how we're understanding what the kids need to learn and their process and how we look into it. Clearly, I'm very excited about that. Huge thanks to Berkeley for coming out and leading that program. A handful of us principals are going down to a professional learning for our professional learning community, the conference where we're going to learn and build on that. I know that Dr. Theo has done a lot of work with that in Roosevelt, so excited to dig in a little bit deeper around that. And then on Monday, we just went through some training with our new science curriculum, because 4 curriculums in 2 years is amazing. It's an amazing pace, and our admin teams have been amazing in working through all of the onboarding and getting the materials out. And then our teachers have been amazing, going through really robust trainings, and then a lot of play-based work, which really makes me excited as a longtime kinder teacher. I know I did the 8th and the kinder, but the play-based is really, really important. Within our community, I want to say a special thank you to Justine Valente and Jade Bowe, who came to Lincoln to do some training and behavior strategies, which was really fabulous on Tuesday. We're doing a lot of restorative practice work. I know Franklin is doing zones of regulation. So we're really digging in deep into how to support our students with both our social emotional curriculum, but also just our knowledge and strategy in supporting our students. We had grade level meetings today, so we got to meet in person, which is a really, really big step. And teachers love to share ideas and they love to encourage and support each other. And so today was a really lovely day for everyone to connect as a team across the district and be able to share about what's working for them and to have that authentic communication where they're building on each other's ideas. It was great. I also want to say a thank you to our PTA teams for getting membership toolkit up and going for the communication and the continuity of communication. It's a huge task, and they have been so responsive and organized in getting that going. And then for the fun, this is the fun category. I want to specifically thank Ms. Glover, Ms. Bennett, Ms. Porter, and our administrative assistant, Mrs. Hay, for our outdoor ed trip, which we just went on. It was amazing. Some bug bites, but other than that, I heard it was all well. A little bit of bus trouble, but we made it, and everybody was so thrilled. We waved goodbye to them. We welcomed them back. It was such a great experience. Music and band, as Renee shared, is happening. It is in full swing. Tons of signups, including someone in my house. So we have a very loud early trumpet player, which is an adventure. I know we just had our chili cook-off. I'm a Lincoln principal and a Roosevelt mom, and so my parenting was called into serious question when I tried to leave after 3 hours at the chili cook-off, because we were not supposed to leave until the end. And then I know Harvest Fest is coming up, so a lot of emphasis on community, which is so meaningful to our families. And then one of the sweetest things was having our picture day recently. We just had our picture day, and I got a little bit looking at them taking class photos. They haven't taken class photos together in 3 years. And so it's these simple moments that I treasure so much and are very wonderful. So things are going beautifully, and that is not taken for granted. So thank you.
Right, item 13, statement of our superintendent.
I'll just say ditto to what Laura said. Is that possible? You were very comprehensive today, Laura. I appreciate it. Just been a really good start. I've been at schools a lot over the past 2 weeks in classrooms. Thoroughly enjoyed that. I actually just needed a break from office work and just said, I'm doing it. And it was just great. It was my best day last week. I spent the whole day doing it. I really appreciate the PD, Marla and Katie Von Heusen. I have really been putting some focused attention on that and providing for people what they need and what they want. And it's been participated in and led also by our teachers. So Marisol didn't point it out, but she's actually been helping us with the training as well, which has been really, really helpful to have staff that's willing to share their expertise where they have it and how much that really means to their colleagues. That's fantastic. And the music program is on the rebound, Renee. We definitely are seeing the numbers from a couple of struggling years to double enrollment, not just at Lincoln, but just up across the board, which is fantastic to see. And parents, you don't have to wait to get instrumental music classes, or you don't have to have done it in 4th grade to start in 5th grade. That seems to be really an attractive message to folks, and we appreciate hearing that. That's fantastic as well. And a big thank you. I met with BEA last week, my cabinet and BEA cabinet meets, and we successfully were able to start library, PE, and music instruction earlier than ever before, which our classroom teachers were very appreciative of. And it was a request and a conversation that we started last year that paid off this year. And it just felt like everybody was in the swing of things. And just really exciting. It's great energy at campuses this year. It's great energy at community festivals. I stopped by for a PTA meeting at Franklin, and there were literally 5 parents outside. I think the free pizza and ice cream helped, but it was just an incredible turnout. So it's been great energy. It's nice to get back to the business of education rather than healthcare support or public policy, which is sort of what we spent our lives. So it's just continued to be a nice wave of excitement.
Great. All right, statement of board members. Start with Dan.
Just in the last few weeks, I've had tours out of Washington, McKinley, and BIS with Trustee Wong. Thank you to Amanda Bonivar for leading all the facilities department changes, and we surveyed the construction, and Tim Ryan. Everything looks really good. Thank you to Principal Yee, Principal Shmumeli, and Principal Gilbert. Great tours, and they all took time out of their day to show us around. Very appreciative.
Doug?
Sure, just a couple of things. Heard great reports about the 6th grade outdoor ed from my daughter, and I'm appreciative of the teachers and parents and PTA and everyone else who made that possible for the 6th graders. It was really important to her and a lot of her friends I know. I'm looking forward to the BCE Gala on November 5th, Saturday, which is in the fall this year. If you haven't heard, tickets I think are going to be going on sale this week, but so I hope everyone takes a look at that. Spent some time reviewing architect proposals with Tim and the team past couple of weeks. I think we have some good ones to look at, and I'm looking forward to a site visit at Hoover on Friday.
I don't have a report.
I just wanted to say that last year and the year before, I had the opportunity to work with Silversmith and other teachers on curriculum adoption. And this year, I have the opportunity to be in my home watching my children take advantage of the curriculum. And that has been really cool to see all of the hard work in action now in my home. And my kids are just they're loving it, and I'm hearing that across the board from families at the elementary school to the middle school. And to echo what everybody else said about outdoor ed, I've heard from so many Lincoln families, so many families from BIS that it's been a hit. And I don't know which other schools have gone so far, but I am sure they all echo the same. And it's been a really heavy lift for everybody. So thank you for all the hard work on behalf of the kids.
Yeah, and like Dan said, we did a few tours, and that was really great to see all the kids. They were actually very well behaved. I won't even say they were running around. They were just sitting and reading and doing their work. And it was so nice to see. I personally am a big fan of music, and I certainly will be paying very close attention to what Renee talked about. Is it called Prop 28? And certainly we all are adults, here should exercise our right to vote and as up to date as possible on things that are very important. The ballot in November, and I really encourage all our parents to be informed and really think about what's important, because we do everything we do for our future, which is our children. So please take a look at that. Okay, so item 15, board communication.
There's just 3 items there for the board's consideration for public consumption. A financial response to our fiscal close from what year we in now, 22, and also a letter from the LCAP. If the community and the board is a little curious as to why we passed those things in June, but we don't get any comments back until October, all I can say is that the wheels of public bureaucracy sometimes grind very, very slowly. So they aren't necessarily something we've done recently. They were from months ago, but they are there. There's also a congratulations letter.
All right. Now we're at our consent agenda. Now's your chance if you would like to pull something off of the consent agenda, make that motion.
I would like to pull something off of the consent agenda.
Okay, which item that?
Or you put it off for just wanting to discuss it.
Oh, I just want to, just so I stick with the page and see if you want to like go for it. Okay, so item C.A, so 16.A, it's the capacity policy. I think we should change committee to superintendent.
And you had asked me to make that change before, and I missed one of you, so my apologies. Yes, unless anybody objects, we can certainly make that change.
Yeah, I think that's enough of a mention. We can just go on that one, right? On with that, are there any other suggestions?
Yeah, there's one item I would like to take off the consent agenda. It's 16BH Workforce Housing Consulting Services Agreement.
And you want to pull that off to and discuss it at the end of our open session?
Yeah, please.
Is the second for that? Is all in favor of moving that? Okay, so we're gonna move 16 B H to the end of our open session. Okay, so anything else? All right, so with that amendment, is there a motion to
Oops, we do have, so Brian, you submitted your public comment by information. Did you want me to read it for you, or since you're here, would you like to read it?
Well, I can read it.
Okay.
I brought an extra copy.
So I actually have, so trustees, just to clarify this, this is new for us. So because we are doing concurrent meeting, it's being broadcast. That's what the statement now says, is that people can submit public comment by 12 p.m. and then we read it for them. And so I did receive a comment from Brian, and so since he's here, you can actually read this comment for himself.
I see, that goes under board communications.
No, it's actually under the consent agenda. It was item 16B A. I know that's a
16
Child nutrition.
child nutrition.
Oh, I
And
see.
so rather than me reading this comment for him, since he's here. he can read it
I see the
himself.
comment is about 16 B.
Correct.
Okay.
So just so everyone's on board. It was $13,000 in the red, the district was for child nutrition. And so I put together 4 questions that I have. The first is that I want to know the answer to. What is the projected net loss for the food program for the 2022-2023 school year? The second question I have is, what are the ramifications for those losses? If we can figure out how to reduce the losses, could the funds be used to support teacher salaries? Number 2 is, as the trustees know, unfortunately, more than half the food ends up in the trash every day. And it's deeply sorrowful for people that, like myself, that care about the environment, that are there on the playground volunteering at lunchtime. It just is deeply painful, and especially as you know, like whole cartons of milk from the trash. It's upsetting. And Trustee DuBois obviously articulated this situation very well last time. So what ideas do the trustees have? And what ideas do our administrators have to reduce the levels of waste, especially since we also have just the month of August, which was a partial month, $13,000 in rent. And our teachers have suffered 10% real pay cuts over the last 2 years. So it's incredibly painful to see all of this going on. The third item was, can you provide me with a copy, or the green teams, can you provide a copy of the Chartwell's invoices as well as the reimbursements actually would be great too from the federal or your government, the $40,000 you receive. That would, I think, enable us to gear our green team efforts in a manner that achieves both financial benefit in addition to green benefits. And then the last is the calories appear way overboard that you're serving. 7 CFR 210.10 says 550 to 650 calories per day. And as you know, you're serving 1% chocolate milk. As I emailed Ms. Boniford, I haven't received a reply, but I emailed you last week. I took a picture and sent it to you. It's 180 calories. The website says 130. It's 108.
Right, you have about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to take 3 more because you. So the total calories add up to clearly many times over 700. And our statutory regulation is 550 to 650. With massive amounts in the trash can every day.
You need to be respectful of the public.
Yeah, I was interrupted. So I think it's necessary we reduce 10% the level of food that's being served. It's exceeding the federal statute.
Right, you need to.
And we're having massive amounts being thrown in the trash every single day.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, so now we're going to make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda with the amendment that item 16 from the H be moved to the end of our open session discussion. Would like to make a motion?
Make the motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Lisa, for a second?
I'll second.
Yeah, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Let's move on to item 17, education. Okay, public hearing and resolution number 2022/23-17 of sufficiency of instructional materials and textbooks. So I need to open the public hearing now. Public hearing is now open. Are there any comments? No, President. Okay, so seeing as there are no comments, I will close the public hearing. Are there any comments about that particular item 17? No. 17B, our justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion update.
Trustee Wong, we do need to pass the resolution for 17.
Oh, 17A needs a vote. Yes, please. Okay. Oh, so is there a motion to approve resolution number 2022/23-17?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Doug. Is there a second? Thank you, Elizabeth. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, now we'll move to our JEDI.
Thank you. Thank you, President Wong. Trustees. This evening, we're bringing forward our first data pool of the year for the JEDIs, which we are very excited about. It's actually the first one that we bring every year, and it's our demographic pool. So this is based on our student federal race and ethnicity reports. This was beginning there. Thank you, Mr. Tackett. So this information is pulled when you do your student registration forms. This is as identified by what you input when you put it in, so it is self-identified. So it is input by whoever is doing the registration. It can be a parent or a guardian, whoever is registering. So it is input by self-identification. So we do not have control over it. So the important part is that some of our parents put in how they choose to identify them. As we go through it, we'll study a little bit further too. Okay. So the objective, this is the reason this is important, is because our first resolution that we bring every year is our equity and diversity resolution, which we talk about the over and under identification of our students in certain groups. When we started talking about equity and diversity in our district, we looked at over identification of certain student groups in areas like special education. We noticed when we first did this that we were in differentiated assistance for students for specific learning disabilities, for the areas of students that spoke an additional language other than English. And so we started looking at other multiple factors. So we started pulling at our data further. We also noticed that, for instance, in our higher areas for math, that we didn't have a lot of students that also spoke an additional language for English, other than English. So we really wanted to look at our data and see where we had over and under identification of students, and then break down barriers to make sure that every student had access. So it was very important to us. So the first poll that we do is look at our overall data, and then to be able to look further at how we can make sure that our students have access.
This is based on this year's registrations.
Correct.
Says talking, but it's not talking.
Yeah.
Perfect, right there.
Just let me know.
Okay, thank you. So again, it's based on our student federal race and ethnicity. So our total enrollment is 3,331 students. Of that, 36.21% identified as white. 0.06% American Indian or Alaskan Native. 31.38% Asian. 0.27% Black or African American, 16.6% Hispanic or Latino, 0.24% Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, 2 or more race categories were 9.97%, and 5.19% unspecified. So again, this is how the person registering identified their student.
So unspecified, that they just left the blank.
Yes, or declined to state. Thank you. So upon digging deeper, our Asian Pacific Islander, our ethnic groups, that was a total of 1,047 students. We did pull in Pacific Islander into this component. When we started pulling it out a little bit further, I will tell you, we were able to really dig down and see exactly how many students. So we did pull in our students a little bit further into this. So you'll see that that's you're able to literally see how many kids when we pull Pacific Islander out from Asian.
Yeah. So that one that should be long, right? With an M.
Correct.
For Guam.
Yes. Armenian, yes, we're correct. Yes.
Just making sure.
Yeah, yes, that is, should be Armenian. So this is the further breakdown of our Asian Pacific Islander ethnic groups. And we are seeing the growing group Chinese. So that was an interesting one. As we continue to seek out more and more, actually, we're having more and more requests for language links. We support our community through language links through translation services at our school sites, and we are using language links. We're seeing a higher number of requests for language links to be used at sites.
Particular language. Cantonese has been Cantonese. Oh.
So that's also why we're gonna go back to our AAPI nights again. So that'll be another area we're gonna go to. So Hispanic or Latinx is 553 students. So we are working with Power School already to begin to dig deeper into this. We want to add a drop-down menu in our registration where we can dive deeper into this to see what part people would like to, should they choose to also self-identify with. So what part of Latin heritage they come from, should they want to? Would they like to pick Dominican? Would they like to pick Mexican? Where would they like to, should they choose to self-identify or also define the state? That is currently not a choice.
A question for you about that, about why that wasn't done. It looks like it's a software issue.
What, right, so it's interesting because under Asian, you are able to do it because that is something that they choose to do federally, but they do not choose to do it this with Hispanic. And it is something that's come up actually at the board level, that it has not we've tried to work with Power School in the past and we've run into a barrier there, but we're really pushing with them now. And with having a component through a third party, we are pushing that conversation at the moment.
And then are these titles either not Hispanic or Latino or Hispanic or Latino also due to power source?
Hispanic is actually one that they have at a federal level, but it's not, Latinx is one that we use, it is not theirs.
Oh, no, but the blue and the orange, what, for example, what does it mean to be not Hispanic versus?
It's Hispanic, yes or no, is actually what you put in registration. It's a yes or no question only.
But then they would still fall under, even if they said no, they still fall under the Hispanic or Latinx 553 students.
So if 553 students are a yes.
So it's also, so that these are taken from the federal government, ethnic and racial survey sources. And the reason for this, and it may or may not make sense to us, but whereas our students that identify as Asian or multiple Asian are usually very specific about how they identify, versus somebody that's Hispanic or Latino might or might not identify along what we consider a specified country of origin or culture. And there's actually a really interesting study that was done about, for example, with the same immigration waves, a lot of Latinx folks present as potentially being Asian, but are Spanish speaking. And so which category do they identify in? So the federal government only recognizes Hispanic or Latino or not. It's a yes or no question versus self-identifying as a subgroup of one of the other larger areas. It's sort of a complex issue that they're looking to get at with data.
But so for someone to end up in the orange on this graph that you have right now, they first answered yes, I'm Hispanic or Latino, and then answered no.
It's just
I think the 553 is just the blue.
I got it.
Same as the last one.
It's just like 3,000.
Got it.
So white or non-white. So of the students that registered as white or non-white, 1,199 students registered as white. In 2,112 students said that they are non-white. So again, it's students marking Caucasian that they're marked as white. So they're saying that they are not two or more races. And they are not marking as defined as state. So it's another, when we pull a data pool out of Power School, it is a street number pool. And that's how it extracts. So it's a really interesting federal pool when we look at the numbers as we start looking across classes. So this was an interesting one when we looked at music last year, because our white students were actually lower or higher in music last year. And so it's another one that we continue to look across as we look for over and under identification.
And the numbers won't quite add up, and that's because in the federal pool, you can identify as both Latinx or Hispanic and white. Right, so these are not, they're not strict boundary draws. You can identify as multiple things in the same system.
For this one, the white, non-white, that's up to the same as first pie chart.
That's the first chart.
Any questions about the-
I did, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Do we ever, or maybe perhaps in the future, when doing a slideshow like this every year, show trends, how it's changed over the years?
We absolutely can.
Interesting. And then, as I understood that, as you said, these numbers are the source of this data is primarily parents when they input their child, and they do that every year. Are they allowed to change year to year? And do we see fluctuations within?
Still great questions. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we see, so, okay. And then do we ever, sometimes parents and children have different ideas. Do we ever cross references by surveying the kids to see how they identify?
That's actually an interesting one. A very common one that we see. So one of the things that we've talked about, for instance, is you can't have an IQ test for a student that's African American. And so there's often something that, because of Larry Keith, the court case. So there's one that's often come up where a student that might self-identify as African American, and so we have to talk to parents about that. So there are complications where we run into that.
To account.
Right, exactly. So there are conversations that we have with parents or students around that. And that is one where we've had to have conversations around and talk to the student and say, you need to have a conversation with your parent. And then you still have to you have to make a judgment call and be able to really focus around what's right for the student, but also make sure that we are valuing both people's opinions. But you ultimately, it is the parent's component and you have to follow what the parent says. So if the parent is saying that the student is Caucasian, then you go with what the parent is identifying as, because that is what the parent is saying. So that is what they are registering.
And then last question, how does BSD use this information to educate kids?
Right, so how do we use it to educate kids? So the state uses it to look at when we upload to a dashboard, or when we go forward, we use it for like differentiated assistance. So when they look at how our students are doing across the county or across the district, or across other districts or the states, they compare us against others. We also use it to look at our barriers. So again, we look at how we are doing when we're looking at over-identification or under-identification of our student groups. We look at it across our schools. We look at it across our curriculums. We look at to see where we have barriers, where kids are, where we're not doing as well as our other students. We look to see where we have students that we are missing marks. Where do we have things that we know that our students are not meeting the majority of where they should be meeting. We look to see where our students, where if all of our students are at this line, but we have some students that are here, we're wondering why. We're trying to figure out what's missing and what can we do differently. So, and it's not necessarily the state, right? So we don't look at the state averages. We look at what the Burlingame average is and where they're coming in and where there are barriers. So that's really important to us. And then we look for trends. So like you asked about the demographic change over time trends, we look at trends across what student group have trend, what their trends are. So that's really important to us.
So it seems like parents filling this out accurately is very important to make sure things are not inequitable in the educating the kids.
I think we have to be careful when we're talking about self-identification. Accuracy is really within the eye of the person filling it out.
So I guess I shouldn't use that word, but that parents do fill it out.
Correct, and they identify, this is the most visible measure that the state uses on whether they consider us to be achieving educational goals for the school district. This is one aspect of it, right? And what Marla is alluding to is they disaggregate all of our performance data by these different groups to make sure that each of these groups is performing adequately compared to their peers across the state. Our measure internally is more that every student is achieving a year of growth regardless of which one you fall into. So internally, that matters more to us, I would say, than the outside measure from the state. However, the outside measure from the state is the most visible measure that everybody looks at first, right? So that's why you'll see in our goals, we would say at least 1 year of growth for every student. The state wants to see, when they use their just general yardstick, are all of your different subgroups disaggregated, performing at the level that we expect them, which is at or better than their statewide. So it's a little bit of a nuance. This is one aspect of data reporting, and that's it, just one.
I would say we actually use it internally more than we use it for external use. We use it, again, when we look at music, when we looked at as a board, when we looked at like algebra, we wanted to see who wasn't in the classroom.
Great, thank you.
We also collect demographic data in the open test.
We do, we look at it, we look at it in every survey, we look at it in every classroom or extracurricular, we look at it, who's our summer school programs, who's in any sort of like pull-out program, in our RTI. Who are we missing when we do screeners? Who are we pulling when we do speech surveys? Anytime that we are doing anything that has to do with students, we always want to look at who's at the table or who's being invited and who are we not bringing to the table. When we do our step up to K classes, who's not getting to preschool and who should we be making sure are getting flyers that even find out about preschools? So all of those items are really important to us, including things for Parks and Rec, or making sure that they're getting healthy kids, or not healthy kids, excuse me, child nutrition services, or making sure that they're getting access to immunizations, or even items that are outside of that they might need supports with that we're not aware of, that aren't necessarily for students that might need supports for vulnerable populations, but other aspects of life, college and career readiness that they might not know because it's the first time their parents haven't gone to college in America. They've gone to college outside of America or something like that. So it's really important that we're finding different things that we can support them with.
And I'm glad that we look relative to how Burlingame does.
Right,
not the state,
absolutely.
Because frankly, all of our groups do better than the state, all of them. And if we went by the state standards, it's just like satisfied, thinking, oh, they match, the state, that's not actually up to the standard. So it's better that we look at what our averages are. as district.
So even our students with IEPs, when you look at their test scores, they do very well,
They
but
do
they,
very
we
well.
still want them to be Burlingame well.
Compared to the state, it's
Mhm.
it's a strange data comparison.
Great, I guess, okay, so how many kids survey, that's kid driven,
Yes.
Yes,
so that would be.
and it's self-identified kid driven, absolutely.
Any more questions about the JEDI presentation? Thank you. All right, item 18A, adoption of pool of qualified architectural services firms.
So I know that Tim isn't here tonight. Usually I speak on his item, but I would suggest that we have not a guest speaker because you're not a guest, Trustee Brown, but I know that you actually served on the committee. So if you could walk us through what it is that we are approving this evening.
Sure, and I see Richard over here too, so I have backup, but so we have a pool of architects that provide services to the districts as we proceed with projects at the school sites. And the last time we did that was 2017, so 5 years ago. So this is a refresh, sort of best practice to go out for bid to all the firms in the area that are, all the architectural firms that are do work for school districts, specialize in that. So Tim sent out an RFP. We had 12 responses. I think 5 of them were attached to the agenda, which are the 5 that we're proposing to move forward with. They all have done work in the Bay Area, significant work, some more than others, some more on the peninsula, which we thought was actually something important. Small firms and large firms. And we had a discussion with the committee, which included representation from principals, staff, board, and talked about various things that we thought were important to the proposals, and basically also scored them quantitatively. So it's basically a straight scoring, and each reader kind of came up with their score and matrix using categories that were provided by Tim. But we didn't just do the straight score. We had made some adjustments, in particular focused on size of the firm, thinking that we're a small district. We have a huge firm. We may not get the people that are actually in the proposal. So we maybe a little biased on that, although I think we gave every proposal a close look, as well as geographic work. So who's done work on the peninsula and is familiar with what it takes to get quality projects done here. So I guess Richard?
No, okay. Tim said I had 45 to 50 minutes.
Oh, you're gonna be briefing this evening. So this is the pool for the next 5 years, is that correct?
Correct.
Right, if the board approves this would be our.
So qualified is not just say approved. It was like they met the standards of what your group is.
Yeah, one of the questions was, what's your relationship with DSA and how do you manage that for projects and districts? There was a question about what projects have you done that never got completed with DSA, so that was kind of interesting. So yeah, that was certainly a part of it. But yeah, it was experience of the personnel that were in the proposal. It was this part is not really focused on fees because we'll still go out to RFP for the actual projects, but there was a fee question, and But yeah, there's a whole sort of broad spectrum of criteria.
Any questions about this? All right, we need to vote on this. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of pool of qualified architectural services firms?
I move to approve the adoption pool of qualified architectural service firms.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All those in favor? 18B annual and 5-year developer fee report for 2021-22.
Thank you, President Wong. Tonight, I bring forward for your review the annual and 5-year developer fee report for the 21-22 school year. Government code requires that we publicly state within 180 days of closing our books, our beginning balance, revenue received, expenditures, and our ending fund balance for our Fund 25 developer fees. This report shows the close of the 21-22 fiscal year and the 4 years before that. So the beginning balance was just over $1 million. We had interest at $9,600. We received $842,000 in developer fees for a total of $851,000. We spent $1 million, which was transferred as part of the bond to offset some of the costs for the student recreation center. And we had an ending balance of $929,000, which is being held for growth due to increased student population from our multiple projects. The city's multiple projects, not ours. Yeah.
Questions from you? That's just an information item. Thank you. Item 19A, public hearing discussion on the draft maps for transitioning from at-large to by trustee area elections. All right, I will open the public hearing.
Great. So trustees, we have had one, after our multiple requests for input, we have one comment submitted by the community, so I'll read it here and in the record. The comment was map 2 seems to align most closely with the elementary school boundaries, which might be a reasonable way to organize the trustees. We did receive one other comment that had nothing to do with the maps. We asked for clarification and none was forthcoming, so that's the only comment pertinent to this issue.
Okay. Seeing as there are no comments here in the room, we'll close. All right. Do we discuss this more?
That's up to you. This is also your opportunity. After having received obviously only the one comment from the community, the maps that were given to you, the draft maps, are open for comment. And if there are any direction that the board would like to provide for me to give to the demographer, that can potentially then change the draft, so we can get a second draft for our next hearing.
Put the drafts up on the screen.
So just as a reminder, the only input that we provided to the demographer was that we would like each district to represent more than one elementary school district or more than one elementary school area. Also, as a reminder, the trustees, our elementary school attendance areas will be slightly changing over the next coming years as our developments get added into currently undeveloped areas. So we're going to have to take that issue on probably in the spring and next summer. So those things are in a little flux. So the other goal of the CBRA is to preserve majority, minority, or large voting blocks of protected minority group. So those were the only criteria that we discussed.
And all three maps, all those.
Actually, they don't. So all three maps do have more than one elementary school in each area identified in them. However, only maps 1 and maps 3 actually preserve a majority minority group, and each one of them preserves an Asian block of eligible voters.
I feel like scenario C offers strongest. Particularly in trustee area 2. More minorities are. I don't have a percentage than the others.
It's the highest percentage, it's correct. Yeah.
With that minority would be Asian.
Asian, but also.
Yes.
And also more pieces.
I thought the second map kind of had exactly the same distribution of people in every single, right, yeah, every single thing, which seems to defeat the purpose. of
Yeah, I agree.
State law in the first place, you know, others, because then you would just stay at large if that were the case, that everywhere you had a area that was exactly a snapshot of
Yeah.
Burlingame as a whole.
I felt the same way, like, why are we doing this if we pick scenario B or 2, whatever it is? I thought the other 2 were both viable. And, you know, what made sense, they were some, you know, some overlap with the city districts, but also taking out more than one elementary school, which is great, or more than one school, which is great.
Anybody feeling a strong preference for any particular map, just sort of, you know, how they feel?
The only concern with the first and third is that trustee area 3, and that's where you have all the growth, right? So. Consistency is gonna be changes.
Well, how often will this be revisited?
Every 10 years. So the first time this map would be in effect is for the 2024 election. And then the next census data comes out in 2030. So it'll be in place for 6 years until the new census data comes out. Which one?
Scenario C.
It's just looking at it.
Yeah, no,
It
just,
just kind of looks.
yeah, when I first saw it visually, I was kind of taken back.
Yeah.
Is C the one that aligns closer to this, to the city of Burlingame? Or is it?
I thought it was B, but I guess I don't really, didn't really
I
do side
mean-
by side, so I don't actually know.
So a couple of questions I had for the board. Would it be helpful to select 2 of the maps and then have them overlay with our current elementary attendance areas? Is that helpful in any way? So that you can see which schools are overlapping with proposed.
And I know I asked that question. I don't feel like we have to create a map for that as long as we can clearly establish that they're not completely overlapping with the school boundaries. Yeah, all 3 meet the criteria. Yeah. So you don't need to do it on my account.
Okay, I mean, we do have a round of revisions that we can discuss, so if it's helpful in any way, or even if it's helpful to give to neighbors or community members, that makes it clear to them, then that's fine. Are there any maps? I keep hearing 1 and 3 or A and C. Are those the 2 that everybody is leaning toward more?
B just looks like a more like a logical map, but looking at it, but I see what you're saying. Like.
It defeats the purpose of why we've been forced, nearly forced to switch to by district.
But then why were we given these maps? Wasn't that the point?
All of them meet the legal criteria. B meets the legal criteria, but does not create a majority minority voting block.
Is that a legal criteria?
Only if you are artificially, what did he call it, shattering districts to break voting blocks, which we're not doing. All of these are actually fairly similar.
So all of them meet the current legal standard?
Yes.
Because the other ones look like you're more like working hard to get these blocks together. So that.
But still within the criteria.
They also.
And they've all been reviewed by council. So.
Oh. I mean, I don't know how much we can just speculate here, but I had heard rumblings from people from other school districts that have not adopted by district voting yet, that if you can show that you cannot actually achieve what the Voting Rights Act law was meant to achieve, because your town is simply fairly, evenly dispersed with your population groups, that you actually are not obligated.
You're correct, but the creation of two maps that do satisfy that criteria actually show quite clearly that we can.
Okay,
And so it does leave that question open. That's actually the route that the city had tried to go.
okay,
And the city was received their advice by council that because they could create maps, that actually they were disproving their own theory.
okay. But that's good to know, because I don't want to feel like you're doing weird things to the boundaries to kind of force this. But if we're not, you're right, exactly. But so, no, so that's good. So I would say, for my opinion, that I would not want it, because that is not in the spirit of the whole point of the law, that why it was created.
Is there anybody else that has a compelling desire to keep draft B, or can we focus on the other two?
So why would we drop at this point?
To narrow it down, and it defeats the purpose of actually having to go through the CBRA process of not preserving the voting block.
I guess I did.
Protect the
So
class.
what steps do we need to take?
We're just getting input. I'm supposed to get the demographer feedback from the public and from the trustees about changes or suggestions that we have, and so far I have no suggestions to provide, and we still have to, we're supposed to make revisions for another public hearing and another round to give to the public, although it seems that we have minimal interest, so maybe we're torturing a point. Trustee might say it feels a little belabored or forced that we have two that we are happy with, so maybe we don't have any changes to request.
I think all three, it's still unclear, I'm hearing different things, but it seems like all three are legally acceptable.
Correct.
B is the only one that has districts off, have four of them that go on both sides of El Camino, which is important historically in this area. But there are legitimate concerns. So I'm happy to leave all three in this round. I don't agree with removing this whole thing. It may ultimately be, but that would be my vote.
So let me ask this in a different way. The five of you need to come to a voting majority on which map that you're going to adopt in the school district.
Does that need to be tonight?
No, this is public hearing number 1 of reviewing maps. What can I ask the demographer for that would help you to reach that decision? Because I'm going to need at least 3 of you to choose and vote for a map.
Right.
I believe that's
Next Thursday, the 20th.
next Thursday, the 20th.
You have a second public hearing next Tuesday, the 18th, and you will vote on maps on Thursday, the 20th.
And so I'm not asking this to push any of you or to belabor a point. I'm trying to get you the information you need because we need to make a decision. And if all 3 are just fine, that doesn't sound like we're going to be able to make a decision.
But I do like the point about, because I was struck by this when I saw a map where an area didn't cross El Camino. It seemed like, if they can somehow preserve, sort of the spirit of the law, which is to try to have, a minority group well represented in one of the maps, while also making sure when we can to have people's boundaries cross El Camino, so we're sharing both sides.
I agree with everything Trustee Wong said.
Thanks.
Simple. Anything else that would help folks? I know they're really similar. That's why I'm trying to draw it out. If there's something that would be helpful. No. Going once, going twice.
Oh, that's what she said. Again, I may be looking at the wrong way. Is it possible for the next generation or future to just see a picture of each school on there? I don't need to see the boundary lines, but literally just the,
Why actually might
Icon.
request both? I mean, at this point, more information for you rather than less is, maybe it'll help, maybe it'll spark a discussion, or it'll make you go, oh, there's the map, right? So that's what I'm trying to.
but in my head, I figured like right now I'm looking at map A, if you overlay other barriers on top of that, when we have 8 or 10 different blocks going across, I just wonder if they'll be confusing rather than just a picture of the school. So maybe one with just the location of the school and another with, maybe I'm the only one that'll be confused.
That's okay. That's not a problem.
Probably never areas 4 and 5. Consolidation. I think there might be another extra. I can't, this is really hard to scroll back. Sorry, I just gotta go.
Them all out.
Well, I'm looking at like this preserves going across El Camino. There's a way of. Because I don't think 4 and 5 actually have them. That's really one.
So most,
These, it's this that does, it's this configuration here that does it. Right? So.
So basically, we just have the configuration, and keep the percentage.
Well, I'll see, I'll suggest that. I'll see. What we do.
So these, yeah.
Maybe we come up with an alternate draft.
Mhm.
That's a very. And demographers speak a slightly different language, so he might say, aha, yeah, no, I can do that. So we'll ask.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. All right, so that was information item. 19B, resolution 2022/23-16, week of the school administrator.
So we would like the board to approve this resolution designating the second full week of October. That would be the week that we are currently in as the week of the school administrator.
And our school administrator, what?
I think we tend to lose
Wow.
everybody. We're
Uh,
watching from home.
all right. Yeah, okay, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution. 2022/23-16 with the school administrator.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second? A second. Thanks, Elizabeth. All those in favor?
Thank you, trustees, and I just want to do a shout out for our principals out there. Thank you very much, not just principals, but district administrators for all that you do. Not that many of us, but we're keeping everything going, so great job.
Thank you. All right, 19C, final read, board policy and administrative regulations.
Sorry, my. Great, sorry, it's up now. So tonight we have a final read of board policies and administrative regulations for purpose of funds raised. We received some feedback that I believe the board received copies of as well. I did my best job actually incorporating all of that. Lots of disparate sort of feedback, so I re-edited and felt like we were given even more permission to let some of the policy go and then put more of our rationale for why a policy is needed in the introduction. So presented to you for you this evening is the final draft of regulation 1271.1 purpose of funds raised.
Yeah, I think this new version reads a lot more smoothly. Still very clear.
And supported by the organisms that are in the policy, so I think it's good changes.
Comments?
so just thank you, the administrative office, for putting this all together.
My pleasure, it's my job.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback from our leadership at PCE and PTA Council. Okay, is there a motion to approve the board policy and administrative regulations for purpose of funds raised?
I'll move to approve.
Good, is there a second? Lisa seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
20A, CBES waiver for Shoko Nagami.
It is recommended that the board waive the requirement to take the CBEST educational skills assessment test to allow the employment of teachers who have not taken this test. We ask that you approve the waiver for Shoko Nagami this evening.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the waiver for Shoko Nagami? Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Doug? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. 20B, CBEST waiver for Kelsey Party.
We ask that the board approve a waiver for Kelsey Partey, the CBEST waiver, in order for her to continue employment with our district for the remainder of the school year.
Is there a motion to approve this waiver?
I'll move to approve.
Doug? Is there a second? Thank you, Elizabeth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so now we should talk about the item that was pulled from the consent.
Yep.
Okay,
So it was item 16.B.H, and it was the item about the DCG.
yeah, workforce housing,
Workforce
consultant services agreement, DCG strategies. Doug, you requested this?
Yeah, so I do support the resolution, but I thought it was a big enough issue that was worth a little bit more discussion for everyone, for the public as well as the board. So at our last meeting, we evaluated alternatives for developing workforce housing on parcels that the district owns. So we had a very well done proposal that or analysis that said we could do 22 units on each of 2 parcels, and that was going to cost us about $750,000 per unit to develop. So I think we all or the sentiment certainly for me was that we were excited about the potential opportunity to offer workforce housing to our teachers and staff, but the costs and the sort of the scale of it was maybe not as great as we'd hoped. So we're still still looking at that alternative, but I think this proposal or this request on the agenda was to also look at, are there opportunities to purchase parcels that are already developed and perhaps at lower cost. So that's the purpose of this. I think that would address a couple of my concerns about cost escalation because it already built new construction risk, entitlement risk of changing the zoning or whatever we need to do on the hill between EIS and Franklin. So I don't know if it works or not, but in my view, it's worth spending the $10,500 to get some analysis to see if that's an opportunity. And then I also just wanted to express we should also think about other opportunities to get to the goal, which would be affordable workforce housing. What that means, that could mean partnering with the city or other entities around the area. So I think just ask that we all keep a broad view of how we get to the goals here. And if we do decide to do a development on our own property, even if we get bond funding for that, takes away capacity that we would have for other projects, as Chris pointed out last week. But that's real. So it's 36 million of school projects that maybe we can't do because we've elected to do this other project. So anyway, I just wanted to mention all of those thoughts because I think it is a big decision for the district and the board. So I thought worthy of a bit of discussion.
Yeah, so I put this on here. It's an amendment to our prior contract. And it was because I heard all of you discussing, so we all get sticker shock, right? When we see the actual costs, and it was 40 million. Let's call it even 40 million among friends. For almost 800 grand per unit, expensive, right? We would have to go out for another bond. We couldn't even afford that out of our existing bond. But then I heard I think Doug, you were one of them, a couple of you talking about, well, what if we just bought existing units and refurbish them? And we didn't do that analysis. No one had actually brought it up. And so what this does is it will give us insight into, now it might not be any less expensive. We don't know, right? That's why we need them to do the analysis. Something else has changed as well. So I don't know how much news everybody watches. So when the governor changed his parking requirement, struck down the parking requirement for new units, there was some other language in there. And part of that language was that no restrictions will be levied against school districts for developing any of their property. So what does that mean? Off the top of our heads, because maybe we're already doing that analysis, it sounds like, and thank you, Richard, for pushing to get some answers. The density requirements would be waived and changed, as well as height requirements. And so where we thought over our various properties, we could build a total of 44 units. Did I see the number today went up to 88? Was that correct? Just because the governor struck down that.
With this new assembly bill that the governor signed, there's the potential when it comes into effect in 2024, there is the possibility of the BIS Franklin site, for example, that we identified as about 2.8 acres, that with an increased density to 30 units per acre, which the new statute would require cities to allow. If you get
as well as 35 feet high.
Right. Yeah. If you get as many as 80 to 85 units on that parcel. So, so
On that one parcel.
yeah, correct.
Same
So-
footprint.
Higher or?
Probably spreading out, possibly go another floor, but probably spreading out. If you remember the plan that we had put together, it was somewhat kind of vacuous. It wasn't very dense because we were limited to the 8 units per acre that the city said at the local zoning. So your easiest path to approval is to stick with what the local zoning allows. So with this new legislation, there's the potential for that. So we sent an email to DCG to ask them to, to give us the rundown. Probably worth another conversation with the district. They were already aware of it, of course. They're going to go through the process of updating their reports as necessary. So they may be coming back with an amendment or revision to their report because of this new legislation. Again, wouldn't go into effect until 2024. Cities are then allowed to, given time, to develop objective development standards that could allow for this type of development, et cetera. So,
And was there something about not requiring as many or any parking spaces?
yeah,
Part of this, that seems kind of nuts, but yeah.
It's certainly fewer. The requirement of the 1 to 1.5, I think, which is what it currently is, goes away. Right.
yeah. The idea is that it's to let parking be market driven. So there's very few developers that are going to provide zero parking for their projects, right? They're gonna design their parking though for what's appropriate for their location. So it's for projects that are within the close proximity to transit, based on the profile of their potential tenants or occupants or buyers if they're condominium projects. Based on that profile, it might be that they provide fewer parking because the market that they're targeting is more Uber users or young professionals that are in close proximity to Intech or whatever it is. So imagine in development, you might build fewer parking. So it allows for that based on the location of the project. And so our projects are within close proximity to the multimodal transit center. So it could allow for better development that has less parking.
Even the Franklin BIS space is
Right,
considered
yeah.
close enough?
Correct, yes. And imagine, and if you're providing, if you consider all of the issues of you're providing housing for teachers that are in relatively close proximity. If you have this teacher, you have a staff member who's working at BIS, they might not need 2 cars that they might otherwise need. So that's what the new legislation contemplates and encourages.
Doesn't it also call for streamlining of the approvals for public agencies like school districts?
Correct. That's the other part of this most recent one, 2297, AB 2297 that he also signed. It allows for it to be a more streamlined process.
So, in my reading, that's why I need to make sure, keep me honest, because you're much better at this. So my reading of it would be that we could still potentially dispose of a property such as the one that we're sitting in and still build double the number of units on existing district property within the next 2 years as far as getting approvals to begin construction. So that's gonna completely change our analysis. So our 6 months of planning was just turned upside down with
Yeah.
a stroke of the pen.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a game changer, and that's.
It's a huge
exactly
game
what
changer,
came
that's why
to
I'm
mind
saying
for
it's,
me, is that it allows, it frees up the possibilities for this site, if you could get the possible number of units to serve the workforce that the district is looking at, as you're looking to serve, to create 30% of units for your staff.
So are these like, loosening regulations, can they apply to other, public entities like the city of Burlingame
Yes.
or, so like joint ventures would still benefit?
Yeah,
from these?
there's a whole gamut of legislation that's coming through related to housing. This one in particular is related to schools because of the identified potential surplus site that many districts have up and down the state. You have a closed school site, or you have a site that has surplus property that is unused, or you have declining enrollment, and
Which there are a lot.
Yeah, so there's a lot.
And instead of districts, like perhaps even some in the peninsula selling off massive amounts of property because it's vacant property and it's very valuable, they're trying to encourage you developing on them to meet some of the housing crisis.
Would this new legislation that just passed and also apply if we were to take over an existing structure, we could retrofit it to add more units?
So
That's not a current school property, it would become school
A
property.
good question. I
interesting
think,
question.
actually, trustee, I think that there is some language in there. Don't quote me on this because we were just doing our reading on this today. I think that there is some language in there that has to do with it being required to be existing property that the district that already owns.
I'm just thinking about the amendment to this contract that we're talking about right now.
And it has to be property that was previously zoned for school.
Okay.
So if you buy a property. in other
And
words,
say
it
it's
has-
school property,
yeah,
and then double the density.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so it has to be existing property as of today.
That's what they're trying to do. They're
Thank you.
trying to get schools to use their surplus property that they already have.
So
But that's,
So to get us back to, don't go away yet, and I really appreciate, this stuff just comes out and we're already figuring it out. I really appreciate that, because I'm not in a box doing it by myself, which is great and less dangerous. So it's changed that, so I think this amendment, and we will talk to DCG within reason, I also want them to update their previous analysis to include these new parameters. So that the board can get a now current picture as of 2024, because that's really rapidly approaching, obviously. So if the board would approve this item, we're going to be including that as well.
I think that there's nothing about this new legislation that changes the complexion of the proposal that you're looking at tonight to look at potential existing properties that to purchase, because that's outside of this.
But we should update the ones that we just completed right now.
And then I guess this goes without saying, I know you don't know numbers, but if we were to increase the density of either of those sites, we're also increasing costs.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. Right, yes. But on a cost per square foot basis,
Goes down.
it goes down.
That was the less expensive place to build.
Yeah, you
because
get
that's what the underground parking.
Right. And you get some economy of scale because you're building on one property as opposed to doing 40-some units on two separate properties that are wholly two separate projects. If you were building, 50, 60, 80 units there, that the cost per unit would show it.
So you said it, I'm sorry, so it would go higher, we could actually build higher than we thought at the Franklin DIS site. Could a neighbor can't complain?
Well, that's the other thing, is that the cities are gonna be required to develop objective standards that can be applied to the project. So the issue is gonna be, can they develop a way to apply objective standards to their hillside ordinance, to the city's hillside ordinance, that is basically review ordinance. So there likely would still be some objective requirement to limit the restriction or the infringement on views in that area. But I think that just with that increased density, because you could spread more development across that property. If the developer were looking at it, in other words, looking at that plan that we developed, they would just spread out more of a footprint across that hillside that we were showing. The reason we were showing so few was again because of the restriction of 8 units per acre. Right.
Would it be possible to to walk to the site at one point and just see it, like view the actual space that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And where it could be.
Yeah, we've done that, and if everybody wants to put on there, I would say it's a hiking
Your hiking
boots kind of
shoes.
thing.
Mhm.
So the one thing that Richard's not pointing out because of the view, that everybody sort of needs to think of when we go up there, there's currently actually only one of those homes which has a view. It was just remodeled, I believe, and they expanded their view. It now looks directly into our athletic field at BIS, I think. But that is the only home that currently actually has a view out the rear because of the way that those views are actually moving forward in front of their homes. They don't actually go to the rear. So it's an interesting, we do have an opportunity there if we're interested. So,
Yeah, and we actually found the easiest route by hiking from below all the way up the hill and then realized, oh, we just.
We could just walk
From
right.
above, so
From
there's an easy route we can reach.
Yeah.
We have figured something out. I appreciate how we've done it.
Thank you for the really cutting edge information.
Yeah, it's hot off the presses.
Really, yeah.
But I think to Doug's point though, I mean, just our discussion is really because everything's still up in the air. You know, we haven't landed anywhere. We're still deciding if this is even a good idea. Is it feasible? Can our community even support, you know, bond, even if we wanted to try to move forward? I mean, just there's so many things still up in the air.
But I also shared with the trustees the land trust development concept. That was something that San Mateo County Park Housing Association came up with. It's very different as well. And I can talk to any of you individually about that. It's a little bit of a different approach. But at least if we approve this, then we have a bit more information. We still don't have to make a decision right now, but it's just. That turned into quite a discussion. I'm glad you pulled it.
Any more comments? So we need to vote on this
Yes.
consulting agreement with TCG Strategies. Is there a motion to approve the amended agreement with TCG?
I'll vote to approve.
Very good.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, trustees.
All right, item 21, public statements related to non-agenda items. Are there any public statements for non-agenda items?
No, I will include in my next update to the board the comment I received, and we can't figure out what it pertains to just because it did come in from the public, but we aren't quite sure what it means. So I will share that with the board in my weekly communication.
All right, item 22, board requested items. We've got a couple things on there, but that's spring.
I could sing. There's lots of comments.
I think we'll make that a board request. Give you time to practice.
Any requested items? Yes, okay, so I'm going to adjournment. I'll make that motion. I motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Elizabeth. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.